Okay, so let's start with the unit 2. Unit 1 I have completed in my previous session and you have also given the quiz for it. Now let's begin with the unit 2, which is cash management. Now what is cash management according to you? Anybody can answer? What is cash management? What are we going to do, or what do you mean by cash management in normal common layman's language? Am I audible? Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am, audible.
Tell me, what do you mean by cash management? Anybody? What is cash?
Ma'am, allocating or bifurcating the cash in different sectors of the organization.
Okay. Managing cash in the chat box also I have got many messages. Managing financial allied activities, handling the cash. Okay. So cash management, as all of you said, is nothing but managing cash, but not our individual cash or our pocket money. Here we are going to talk about how businesses manage cash and how business cash management techniques can help in proper utilization of cash. So let us begin. So cash management, I'll not read it fully, I'll just give you the highlight. It is one of the key areas of working capital management. Okay, it is a highly liquid asset, which here it is given here. It is an highly all liquid asset which can be reduced to cash anytime. So cash is a ready currency. Okay, near cash or cash in marketable securities means when you invest somewhere where you can convert it into cash within a day or two. So liquidity is very high, and cash is one asset which every business needs to run because it is a common denominator to all the assets. Your stock, when you sell, it gets converted to cash. Your receivables, when you receive back money, it will get converted to cash. So cash is a common denominator to which all your current assets will be converted at the end. So that's why managing cash is a very important thing. Okay, so remember, it is nothing but an important part of working capital. All your current assets can be converted to cash as a common denominator, and cash is a liquid asset which is readily available in currency form. Okay. Next, let's go to the next slide. Now, motives of holding cash. This is very important. They're given in detail in the coming slides, but I am explaining you in this slide. You can read the details later. Motives of holding cash. The very first one is transaction motive. Now, what is transaction motive? Transaction motive is nothing but when you require cash for your day-to-day requirements. So I have to buy raw material, I have to pay electricity bill, I have to pay wages, I need to oil my machine, repair my machine. All these are day-to-day activities or expenses. I have to order tea, I have to bear the canteen expenses, I have to get the papers for printout. So these are transaction motive. For all everything on credit. For a you will have to pay when you maintain your day activities. Called the transaction motive of holding. We go through what basically see. It is for routine or today, so it's routine to finance the transaction of the ordinary business. So we did for activities, and whatever examples I told you, if you could see here, I'm highlighting it in red. It is required for operating expense, financial expenses, purchases, wages, interest payment, and so on. So it's a very important motive. You need to keep cash for transaction motive. The next is the precautionary motive. Now the word itself says precautionary means when something wrong is going to happen in the future, or you're feeling something wrong may happen in the future, and for that you keep the cash. So it is uncertain. It may or may not happen. but you don't want to take the risk. You need to keep certain amount aside for precautions, right? Let us take example of our day-to-day life now only. Since when the pandemic and the COVID has happened, every parent or every individual who is earning is thinking of keeping some cash aside for medical emergencies. It may or may not happen, we may or may not fall sick, but if there is money available and if something goes wrong, we can use that money easily and get well treated and get well soon. So this is how businesses also do. They keep certain cash aside for precautionary motive, for certain uncertain things that can happen in the future. So let us see the example of what are those uncertain things. So here are the uncertain things. First, flood, strike, and failure of important customers. So failure of important customers means important customers may not pay. So if there is flood, strike, or customers don't pay, you cannot tell your suppliers, right? My customer didn't pay, I can't give you money today. You cannot tell the electricity people, there is a strike going on in my company, no manufacturing, therefore I cannot pay electricity bill. It's not possible. So you need to keep some money aside for such uncertain or unseen situations. Bill may be presented for settlement earlier than accepted. You might have told your supplier, I'll pay you after 3 months, but he may come within 2 months and say, I need money urgently. Before the due date, he will come and present the bill. You cannot say no, you'll have to pay. So you can use the money for precautionary purpose. Unexpected slowdown in your receivables. What you have to receive, that may get delayed. You may not receive it on time. Then cancellation of some orders also can be one of the reasons. So orders are getting cancelled and therefore it's very difficult for you to meet the day-to-day expenses. So you use the money of your precautionary motive. And a sharp increase in cost of raw material. You might have thought I will buy raw material for 1 lakh, but because of increase in price, now you will have to spend 1,50,000. So that 50,000 additional, you don't have it in your transaction motive or you had not planned for it. So you can use it from your precautionary motive. So the basic thing that I want to tell here is precautionary motive is the motive in which you keep cash for unseen, unforeseen, or you can say uncertain situations. Okay. See here, thus precautionary cash balance serves to provide a cushion to meet the unexpected contingencies. So you have backup plan or plan B to meet the uncertain situations. Am I audible? One of you.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I'll keep asking this in between because I want to know whether the meet is still on or the internet connectivity has gone. So one of you can unmute and keep me confirmed. Let's go to the next, the speculative motive. What is speculative
Ma'am,
motive? Now, can anybody tell me?
Your voice is breaking.
ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Okay, okay. Just a second. Is it audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. Can anybody tell me what is speculative motive or what is speculation? The meaning of the word speculation. Have you heard about speculation?
Yes, ma'am.
What is speculation? Anybody?
It is the purchase of an asset with the hope that it will become more valuable in the near future, ma'am.
Okay. Anybody else? Yes, Haivadan has replied it. It's prediction. Anybody else? Okay. Speculation or speculating is basically predicting the future and deciding on it today. When you invest in the stock market, you are basically speculating. You don't know what will happen to the share price tomorrow or day after. But you look at the news and you predict that tomorrow the share price of TCS is going to increase. So let me buy the shares today itself. So that is speculating. You're taking risk depending on your predictions as to what is going to happen in the future. Okay, so what does company do? What is speculative motive for a company in cash management? It is not related to stock market or investment. Here speculative motive may be like Sonam said, You may think that the price of raw material may increase in the future, so you want to buy them today only. So you're speculating a rise in the future, or you're predicting a rise in the future in the raw material price, and therefore you're buying the raw materials today itself. Let me give you another example which happened.
Ma'am, you're not audible.
Okay, I think you're not able to see the screen.
No, ma'am.
Okay, there's internet issue in the PC. Once it comes back, I'll join through the PC as well. Till then, let. Okay. Am I audible now?
Yes, ma'am.
Is
Ma'am,
the screen visible?
no,
No,
ma'am.
ma'am.
Now is it visible?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we were talking about speculative motive. In case of speculative motive, if your father feels that the onion price is going to increase sharply or drastically, your mother will tell him to buy 25 kgs or 50 kgs and stock it. So because they know that the prices are going to increase, they have predicted the market and they have thought things will go worse in the future. It may go to rupees 100 rupees kg. Therefore, they buy it in advance. Now, advance, they need money from the salary. Already everything is spent, everything is planned. All of a sudden, if I have to buy 100 kgs, 200 kgs of onions, I need to have money. So that is the money that is kept aside for speculative purpose. If I get any advantage, if I am predicting the future and I am able to benefit out of it today, let me use the money that I have kept aside for speculation purpose. Okay, so that's what is speculative motive for business as well. Let's understand it with the explanation also. So the speculative motive represents a positive and aggressive approach. Okay, firm aims to exploit profitable opportunities and keep cash in reserve to do so. So you're predicting the future and you're waiting for profitable opportunities. As soon as you get some opportunity, you use the money that you've kept aside for speculative motive. Okay, now these are few examples of speculative motives. I'll read it out. The speculative motive helps to take advantage of an opportunity to purchase
Ma'am, your
raw.
voice is breaking.
Am I audible now? Now, are you able to hear me?
Yes.
Okay. So we were talking of speculative motive, few examples which are there on the screen. So a chance to speculate on interest rate movements by buying securities when interest rates are expected to decline. So here what we are doing, we are buying securities when interest rate are expected to decline. That basically means suppose today I am able to invest in an FD at 10% rate of interest, and I feel that after 2 months the interest rate is going to be 8%. Then what I'll do, I'll go and invest it today itself. So if I have to keep a FD and somebody tells me interest rate is going to fall after 2 months, I would go to the bank today and I would keep the FD at 10% today only. I'll not wait for 2 months the interest rate to fall and I should earn less. That is not possible. So same way businesses also keep tracking the interest rates. Whenever they feel that the interest rates are going to fall, they go and invest money before the interest rate falls. So when you invest it at a higher rate, even if in the future the rate falls, your money will grow at the rate at which you invested. So that is another speculative motive. Then delay purchase of raw material on the anticipation of decline in prices. So this also is possible. You buy only how much is required now and you delay the purchase because you feel the prices are going to fall in the coming future. Make purchases at favorable prices. So these are few speculative motives. Now the last one is compensating motive. So what is compensating motive? Uh, what do you mean by the word compensation or compensating? How do you compensate somebody? Anybody?
In the form of reward,
In the form of?
reward, reward.
Okay. Now, when I'm talking about compensating motive, here I basically mean that if somebody is providing me some services, I need to compensate him for paying for his services. If insurance company is providing me life insurance, I am compensating them by paying premium. So compensating is doing something in return for what you're getting. So whatever services I'm getting, I'm paying for them in return. Whatever insurance I'm getting, I'm paying it in return. Whatever vehicle insurance I get after accident or something damage to the vehicle, I have already paid premiums for that. So I have compensated them for that. Now, how does it get eligible for a company and how does it get logical for cash management as a compensating motive? When I say cash management as a compensating motive, I basically mean to say you have to keep some minimum balance in the bank accounts. I hope all of you have bank accounts, and when you go to the bank, if you have a student account, they may allow you to have a zero balance account. But if it is not a student account and it is a normal SB saving bank account, they will tell you if you don't want a checkbook, the minimum cash balance is 500. If you want the checkbook, the minimum cash balance is 1000. Have you all gone through this? Have you all heard about it?
Yes,
Yeah.
ma'am.
Now, why does bank keep that minimum balance? It is basically we are compensating the bank for giving the services through this minimum balance. For certain services, banker will charge you there and then. Like for example, if you have lost your ATM and you go and apply for a new ATM, the banker will charge you the ATM cost and he'll give you the new ATM. If you ask for a checkbook, they'll charge you for that. But if you go to update the passbook, do they charge you for updation of passbook? No. Okay. If you go and say, I want to start online banking, give me my user ID, password, or the details, they will not charge you for that. You go to bank and withdraw cash, you go as many times as you want and give the withdrawal slip, they will not charge you for that service. But they are not directly charging you for that, instead, they are indirectly charging you for that. How does a banker charge indirectly? By using your compensative motive services, the banker will charge you indirectly. Okay, now how can he charge you indirectly? He will basically use your money which you have kept as minimum balance and invest it somewhere. When he invests it somewhere, that money will earn interest, and that interest is bank's gain. So your money is giving interest to the bank, because of which certain services which are provided by the bank are free and which you can use it easily. Okay, so this was about the compensating motive. So these are the 5 motives. Now I'll again explain what compensating motive is. Am I audible?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, suppose all of you keep a bank account, and all of you have kept minimum balance of 1000 rupees in your bank account. So 1000 rupees minimum balance into 120, or let us say 70 of you in my class, so that becomes 70,000 rupees. You cannot withdraw that money, it has to be kept in the bank till you close your account fully. So 70,000 rupees from one class the bank will always have, that it can invest somewhere and earn interest. So like that, millions and billions of people have bank accounts and everybody keeps the minimum balance. So this is how the bank is compensating itself. So we provide a minimum balance for them. So these were the motives for holding cash. That is, I will read it out again for you. First one was transaction motive. Can anybody highlight me on what was the what transaction motive tried to say?
Day-to-day requirement expenses.
The next is precautionary motive. Can anybody tell me what precautionary motive has to say?
Keeping some money for future only.
Keeping some money for uncertainty or uncertain situations. The next was speculative motive. What speculative motive is trying to say?
Predicting future.
Speculative motive is
Predicting future.
okay, predicting future, and investing so that you can gain from the future. And compensative motive,
Compensating for any services.
okay, compensating for any services. So you need to keep some money aside so that you can compensate for certain services that are provided by bankers. So you keep that minimum balance which you can't touch and you cannot use. So these were the motives of holding cash. Okay, the next part we'll go to now. Objectives of cash management. Now the objectives of cash management are, first is meeting payment schedule and the second is minimizing funds committed to cash balance. So there are two major objectives of managing cash. The very first objective says you need to meet payment schedules. You should have that much cash that you are able to make all the payments on time. So you should be able to meet the payment schedule. Now, if I keep too much of cash thinking I have to make payments, then what will happen? I will lose on the interest. More cash in hand means you are not keeping it in bank. When you don't keep it in bank or you invest it anywhere, you won't earn interest on that. So the second motive is keeping as minimum as cash possible so that the cash can go into securities or into banks and it can earn interest for itself. So now if you see, both the motives are contradicting. One says keep cash to make payments. The other says keep as less as possible so that we don't lose on interest. So when both the motives are contradicting, what we have to do, we have to have a optimum level of cash. Nor we can have too much, that is 100% cash, nor we can have too little, that is 0% cash. So 0% and 100% are extremes. We cannot touch the extremes. We have to take a midway and we have to find the optimum level of cash that can be managed. So let's see the next part. Factors determining cash needs. Now, these are the factors which will tell you why cash is required. First, we'll understand this and then we'll go to the optimum cash balance. The very first one, synchronization of cash flows. So, the major factors that are determining your cash needs are whether your cash flows are synchronized. What do you mean by synchronization? Anybody can tell me the meaning of synchronizing?
Ma'am, daily check.
Check. Okay. Anybody else? Synchronizing is basically matching. I match my cash inflows with the cash outflows. I match my payments with the receipt. So if I'm able to synchronize them very well, I will keep very less cash. Suppose I have to receive 5,000 rupees from a customer today and I have to pay 5,000 rupees to one of the suppliers today. So I've synchronized same day. I'll receive from him and I'll pay the other person. But if the synchronization is not done and I'm going to receive after 8 days, but I have to pay today, in that case, today I will, so I'll have to borrow or I'll have to arrange it from somewhere. So, okay, is my voice clear now or it's still breaking? Sonam, are you able to hear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So what happens in synchronization is you match your cash receipts with your cash payments. If you have matched them well, you need not have huge cash amount. You can manage with very little cash also. So that is the first point you should know, whether there is synchronization in your cash flows or no. The next one, short cost. Now, what is short cost? Short cost is nothing but if I keep very little cash, I will have to handle the shortage cost. Because there is shortage of cash, there will be certain costs that I have to handle. What are those costs? Transaction. Now, what is transaction cost? Suppose I keep my entire bank, okay, and whenever I will withdraw, so I don't have any cash, full money is in the bank. Today I need 2,000, I withdrew. Tomorrow I need 5,000, I withdrew. But keep withdrawing as much as you want. There's a limit also, right? ATM withdrawals are free. After that, the bank will start charging you. Same way, when you put money in the securities or in stocks or something for shorter duration, if you sell them, you will have to pay charges to the broker. If you buy them, you will again have to pay. Okay, it will connect. Till then, let us continue with the point that we were discussing. So, I was talking about transaction cost.
Ma'am, your voice is breaking.
Is it clear now?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes,
I
ma'am.
was talking about transaction cost. So what we were trying to say in transaction cost, we were basically trying to see that how much I'll have to pay to convert my cash into securities and again securities into cash. So if I don't keep any money with me and keep all the money in mutual funds or in stock market for short duration, whenever I need money, I'll have to sell the shares and get back the money. When I sell the shares, I have to pay brokerage fees. So every time I want money, I am paying brokerage fees. That is transaction cost. So if you keep very little or no cash, you will have to bear the transaction cost, which will be very high. The second is you will have to bear the borrowing cost. If you don't maintain sufficient cash with you, you will not be able to meet your day-to-day activities. In that case, you will have to go and borrow money every now and then from people. So you will have to borrow from the bank, you will have to borrow from society, friend, and you will have to keep paying interest on that. So borrowing cost will also increase if you don't have sufficient transaction or sufficient cash balance with you. The next point is loss of cash discount. If I don't have enough money and I keep entire money in the securities, then what I'll do, I'll lose the cash discount. If somebody is telling me, if you pay early, I'll give you discount of so much. Now, if you go to any store and you say that you're going to pay cash and buy, the person will tell you, okay, if you're paying cash, I'm ready to give you so much discount. Correct? So if you have paid cash, you will be getting the cash discount very easily. But if you don't have cash and you get it on credit, then in that case it becomes very difficult for you to get the cash discount or get the cash discount, because for credit customers discounts are never given. Okay. Then the next point is cost associated with deterioration of credit rating. So if you're not paying on time, your credit rating will come down, your suppliers will stop believing you, and they will start feeling that this person is never going to pay on time and we have to not give him any goods on credit. If you do that, your credit rating will come down and people will not supply goods to you. So this is another disadvantage of shortage cost. Then the next one is penalty rates. The penalty rates will also be high if you are delaying in payment of certain expenses. If you don't pay taxes, you will have to bear penalty. If you don't pay electricity expenses, you will have to pay penalty. If you don't pay wages, the workers may leave your organization and go. So all these kind of things are the things that are leading, because you have shortage of cost, you don't have sufficient cash, so you are bearing this shortage cost. Okay, so this is one of the disadvantage. If you keep very little cash, you will have all these problems. The next is excess cash balance cost. If you keep too much cash, now you don't want to go into all the troubles of borrowing, transaction cost, losing of cash discount. So you have decided, I'll keep lots of cash with me. In that case, that cash will remain idle with you till you don't put it for use. So when you keep the cash idle in your cash box, it is not earning anything. So that is another disadvantage of cash balance, that is you cannot earn anything. Next is procurement and management. The next important thing that you have to keep in mind, or the point for determining cash needs, is it is not easy to procure cash. When you go to borrow or get a loan also, it takes lots of time for you to get that money. The loan giving procedure is too lengthy. So procurement and management is very difficult if you don't maintain a sufficient level of cash. And the last point is uncertainty and cash management. If it is uncertain, and that uncertainty leads to, if there is any uncertain situation that has come up and you need money for it, like flood, strike, or maybe your order got cancelled, at that time if you don't have speculative precautionary motive cash, then it will be difficult for you to manage that situation. So what I was trying to tell you through these slides, or through this particular point, was if you keep too much of cash also, it is dangerous, and if you keep too little cash also, it is dangerous. So you need to manage and keep a proper level or a sufficient level of cash. Okay, so this was about how do you basically manage your cash. Are you able to see the slides now? I'm trying to present it through my mobile.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So we just discussed this slide, which spoke about factors determining cash need. So I discussed all the points that were given there. Now let's go to the next slide that talks about the Baumol model. Now what is Baumol model? Baumol model is nothing but a model which tells you how you can derive at an optimum cash balance. So like in working capital, I told you can't have too much of working capital nor too little. Same is the problem with cash management. So here we will be using the Baumol model to determine the optimum level of cash balance. Now why it is called as Baumol model? Because the person who gave this model, his name was Baumol. So he has named it according to his name. Okay. Now Baumol model uses the same technique that people used in inventory management, economic order quantity technique. I don't know how many of you have heard about it, but if you are from BBA, BCom or commerce background, You basically might have heard economic order quantity. The formula was square root of 2AO divided by C. So the same logic he is going to use here and explain how the cash can be managed well and optimum cash balance can be determined. If you have not learned it in the past, not to worry, we will learn it now and you will understand what I am trying to say. So let's see what the Baumol model has to talk about. The Baumol model of cash management provides a formal approach for determining a firm's optimum cash balance under certainty. Now remember this, he is telling you that the model will provide you an approach to find the optimum cash balance. Can anybody tell me what is optimum cash balance? Minimum cash balance. No, Nikhila, it's not minimum nor maximum. Yes, however, not too less, not too
Balanced
much.
cash.
Yes, anybody else?
Balanced cash balance, ma'am. Not less, not.
Balanced. So you take a midway. Yeah, Jyoti is right. Balanced. You're taking a midway. Nor you are having 100% cash, nor you are having 0% cash. You are having optimum cash balance, taking a mid path between the two. Okay. So he is telling you how to determine optimum cash balance under certainty. What is certainty? Anybody? Uncertainty is something that may go wrong or may happen wrong. What is certainty? Certainty is something that you know, right? I am taking the class now and you are attending my class now. So this is certain, this is happening, correct? Uncertainty is something that you don't know. If I say I'm going to take an extra class tomorrow, it is uncertain because till tomorrow happens, you cannot say whether I will take or no, right? Because anything can happen till tomorrow. So certainty is something that is going to happen. Yes, Twinkle is right. It is bound to happen. Okay, because you can tell with surety. I'm taking class right now, so it's happening. It is possible, it is certain. So he is telling you how to determine optimum cash balance under certainty. So if something goes wrong, his model won't work. Whatever is planned, if it goes as per that, if it is possible, if it is certain, only then his model will work well. So this is the first basically disadvantage of his model. He doesn't cover the uncertainty part of it. He feels everything will go as per the plan and everything will be certain. Okay, in real life that doesn't happen. Okay, the next one. It considers cash management similar to an inventory management problem. I told you Baumol has tried to use inventory management EOQ model, economic order quantity model formula to do it. So he is considering cash management similar to inventory management. The purpose of this model is to determine the minimum cost amount of cash that a financial manager can obtain by converting securities to cash. So what is happening here? We are basically, the purpose of this model is he wants to determine the minimum amount which you always want to keep in cash. So if I have decided the minimum amount will be 1 lakh rupee, so every time I sell my securities and get cash, I should get 1 lakh cash. I should not get 5,000, 10,000. So it is telling you a minimum amount that you should always have or that you should always use to convert your securities into cash. Considering what? Considering the cost of conversion and counterbalancing the cost of losing on your interest. So he is trying to give you the midway. He is balancing the shortage cost, or you can say the transaction cost, which we call as conversion cost, converting cash into security, security into cash. That is your transaction or conversion cost. And he is trying to balance between the lost opportunity cost. Now, if I keep too much of cash with me, what is the opportunity that I am losing? Can anybody highlight on that? First, tell me what is opportunity cost? Anybody, what is opportunity cost? Investing into something new. Okay. Okay. Pooja, but I think opportunity cost, investing into something new, fine. But that is investment. How do you link it to opportunity cost? You studied it in economics, like, right?
Ma'am,
Giving up
sacrifice cost.
sacrifice. Yes. If you are doing something and sacrificing something for that, you call it as an opportunity cost. Yes, Sharvari, when there are two options and you choose one option and you forego the other option, the foregone option is called as the opportunity cost. So here, if I keep lots of cash with me, what I'm foregoing? I'm foregoing interest that I could have earned on that cash. If I would have kept that cash in bank, I would have earned interest on that. But instead of keeping it in bank, I'm keeping it with me. So what I'm losing the interest. So that is my opportunity cost. So there are two things. Yes, Vijay, you're right. It's the next best alternative. Prajakta, Preeti, correct. What answers you'll have given? Let's go ahead now. So there are two costs that he is trying to highlight here. One is the cost of converting marketable security into cash that we call as transaction cost, and the other is the lost opportunity cost. Now, what is the lost opportunity cost? The lost opportunity cost basically means the interest that you are losing. So Baumol is trying to balance between these two and give you an optimum level of cash, right? I don't know how many of you remember, but in the first unit when I was discussing optimum working capital also, there were two costs. Can anybody tell me which were the two costs that we discussed in the first unit when we were discussing optimum capital structure? Anybody?
Carrying cost and shortage cost.
Correct. Carrying cost and storage cost. So, sorry, shortage cost. Correct. So, carrying cost and shortage cost both should be equal or they should be balanced to get optimum working capital. Same way here, the conversion cost and the opportunity cost both should be balanced to get a proper level of optimum cash balance. So there we used carrying and shortage cost. Here we are using conversion and opportunity cost. So the logic is same. We are having a balance between the two. Now there are certain assumptions that Baumol has made. The very first thing, the firm is able to forecast its cash needs with certainty, which is wrong. Can anybody tell me how much cash you will require with 100% confidence? No, it's not possible because there might be some uncertainty. There might be something that may happen. I may need more cash or I may not need any cash at all. So with 100% surety, you cannot ever predict your cash requirement in the near future. But Baumol's model says that it is possible. So that is one assumption that he has made. Okay, the next assumption, the firm's cash payments occur uniformly over a period of time. Now, this assumption is also not going well because cash payments may occur at different time periods. You cannot say it will occur uniformly. You cannot say this month I'll get 10,000, next month 10, next month 10, because sometimes you may get a little more or sometimes due to certain issues you may get a little less. So, this is also an assumption. The opportunity cost of holding cash is known and it does not change over time. Now, what is opportunity cost in this case that we discussed? We discussed that it is interest. Interest that we are losing is our opportunity cost. What he is trying to say is interest is always same. So, your opportunity cost will be always same. That will not change, which is again not true. It is an assumption because interest changes as the government or the banking interest rate changes, the interest will change here as well. The next assumption is the firm will incur same transaction cost whenever it converts securities to cash. So here he is trying to say that the brokerage cost will be same. Is it possible? Can we have the same brokerage cost? No. The brokering firm can increase the brokerage cost as and when the days pass, you open a demat account. Initially the cost will be low, but as and when you trade after a year or two, the cost keeps on increasing. So that is also an assumption, not possible in real life. So these are a few assumptions that were made by Baumol. Now let us see how he is trying to explain his theory. Let us assume that the firm sells securities and starts with a cash balance of C rupees. So here the firm is starting with the cash balance of C rupees. So whatever amount, maybe C is 1 lakh rupees. So the firm is starting with a cash balance of 1 lakh rupee. As the firm spends cash, its cash balance decreases steadily and reaches to zero. So I have 1 lakh rupees, I started my business, I started using money. As and when I use the money, the cash balance goes on decreasing and at a point it reaches to zero. Once it reaches to zero, what I'll do? Again I'll get cash. So the firm replenish its cash balance to C rupees again. So from if I had 1 lakh I spent, it became zero. Again I'll get 1 lakh so that I can spend it and run my business. So again it will go to zero and the cycle continues. So this pattern continues over time. Since the cash balance decreases steadily, the average cash balance will be C by 2. So if you look at the graph there, what I am trying to say, you will understand it. In the graph, we started with the C and we came down to 0. Then again we buy and come down. So this cycle continues. So if I have to find the average, what I will do? C plus 0 divided by 2 to get the average, right? From where I started, that is C, and where I am coming down, that is 0. So C divided by 0, C plus 0 divided by 2 will give me the average. So I am just saying it as C by 2 is the average, because C plus 0 is C, right? So C by 2 is the average that you will be getting. So this is what he tried to say in the previous slide, that is C by 2 is the average cash balance that a firm will always require. So if my C is 1 lakh, my average cash balance will be 1 lakh divided by 2, which is 50,000, which I will always require. Okay, the next one. The firm incurs a holding cost for keeping the cash balance. It is an opportunity cost that is returned foregone on the marketable securities. If the opportunity cost is I, then the firm's holding cost of maintaining an average cash balance is I into C by 2. Try and understand this formula. First, I'm trying to tell you that I need 1 lakh rupees to run my business. I use it and it becomes zero. Again, get 1 lakh rupee and again I use it. So on an average in my firm, I will have 1 lakh divided by 2, that is 50,000 rupees. So on an average, all the time I want to keep 50,000 rupees with me. So 50,000 rupees, if I keep with me every time, what I'm doing on that 50,000, I'm losing interest on that 50,000. So when I do I, that is the interest rate into that 50,000 rupees, I will get my opportunity cost. So the formula is given there. If you could see, holding or opportunity cost is equal to I, which is the interest rate, into C by 2. C by 2 is nothing but the average cash balance that you need every time to run the business. In our example, 1 lakh was the cash that I needed, but the average was C divided by 2. So 1 lakh divided by 2, 50,000. So if I keep 50,000 with me, I will always lose interest on that 50,000. So how much interest I am losing, I have to find. So I am doing I into C by 2 to find the opportunity cost. Any doubts with the first formula? Anybody, any doubts? Understood how opportunity cost is calculated? What is C by 2 and how did it come? Reply in the chat box or you unmute and tell me.
Understood, ma'am.
Okay, let's go to the next formula. So this was about opportunity cost. Like in working capital, we had carrying cost and shortage cost. Here we have opportunity cost and transaction cost. So I have finished opportunity cost. Let's go to the transaction cost formula. The firm incurs a transaction cost whenever it converts its marketable securities to cash. So every time I sell securities and get cash, I am incurring transaction cost. Okay, total number of transactions during the year will be total funds required T divided by cash, that is C. So that is T by C. The per transaction cost is assumed to be constant. Now let's understand this first. What is this T by C and what are we trying to say? Suppose you started a business and you require 10 lakh rupees cash. Okay, So you start a business, you require 10 lakh rupees cash for the full year. Okay, so for the full year you require 10 lakh. That means you will not keep 10 lakh in your cash box and say whenever I need I will use. You will keep it in the securities. You will invest it in share market or mutual funds, right? Once you keep it in the securities, whenever you need, you will withdraw. So whenever you need basically means how much you need. So in our previous example, I told you, suppose I need 1 lakh rupee every time, and then when it becomes 0, again I take 1 lakh. So you need 1 lakh rupee every time. So I have total 10 lakh rupees. I have kept it in the bank, and whenever I need, I will withdraw 1 lakh rupees. So in a year, I have to finish full 10 lakh. So in a year, how many times I will withdraw? Can anybody tell me? I'll repeat it again. I need 10 lakh rupees for the full year, not today, full year. So I will keep that 10 lakh in the bank. Okay, and I will withdraw 1 lakh from that today. So I am going to use that 1 lakh today till it becomes 0. Once it becomes 0, again I will go and I will withdraw 1 lakh. So like this, how many times I will withdraw 1 lakh rupee from the bank? Deepali has already answered. It is 10. Correct, Deepali. Correct, Prajakta. I hope you are understanding. 10 lakh divided by 1 lakh. 10 times you will withdraw money whenever you need. So that 10 times is nothing but 10 transactions. And every transaction will cost you. So every time you withdraw, suppose the cost is 50 rupees. So 10 times you withdraw, 10 into 50 rupees. What is the total cost? 500 rupees. So this is how you calculate your transaction cost. So see the formulas. Now try to understand. T by C is giving you the number of transaction. T is the total cash required, 10 lakh. Divided by C is the withdrawal that I am making every time, which is 1 lakh. So 10 lakh divided by 1 lakh, I got 10 transactions. So T by C is giving the number of transactions. Now I don't need the number of transactions, I need the transaction cost. So every transaction is costing me 50 rupees. So when I do 10 into 50, I'll get the transaction cost as 500 rupees. So I have to multiply the transaction cost with T by C. So the formula is B into T by C. I hope you are able to see the screen and the formula. So
Yes,
B
ma'am.
is okay. B is the cost per conversion. So how much every time I get 1 lakh rupee, how much I have to pay? And T by C is the total number of transactions, in which T is the total cash requirement for the whole year, and C is the marketable securities that you every time want to withdraw, or the optimum cash balance is your C. Okay, now the total cost. Total cost will be what? Your opportunity cost that you calculated previously, which is I into C by 2, plus your transaction cost, which is B into T by C. So if you look at the total cost formula, I have added both. I into C by 2 is the opportunity cost, plus B into T by C is the transaction cost. Now in this everything that we discussed, I we will be knowing, which is the interest rate prevailing in the market. B we will be knowing, which is the transaction cost. Every time I withdraw, the broker will tell me the brokerage fees. So that I will be knowing. Total cash requirement I will be knowing, because for the full year how much I am going to use, I will plan it in advance. Only thing that I'll not be knowing is C, which is my optimum cash balance. How much I should withdraw every time. In my example, I took 1 lakh. Just to explain you, randomly I took the amount 1 lakh. But is 1 lakh optimum, or is there any other amount that is optimum? So how do I find the optimum cash balance is very, very important. So how much is optimum? We have to find. So to find that C, there is a formula given below by Baumol. So he says to find C, we'll use the economic order quantity formula. There the formula was 2AO divided by C. A was annual requirement, O was ordering cost, and C was carrying cost. But here we are not doing ordering, carrying anything. Here we have transaction cost and opportunity cost. So it is square root of 2BT upon I. B is the transaction cost. T is the total cash required in the entire year. So 10 lakh rupees, which you said may be the total cash required, divided by I is nothing but the interest rate that you're going to have for the whole year. So we are using this formula to find the value of C. And once we get the value of C, we can find the total cost by putting the values in the total cost formula. So I hope that is clear till here. Any doubts till here, anybody?
No, ma'am.
No, ma'am.
Okay, so the same thing he has tried to explain through the graph also. So I'll explain you the graph. It basically says it is the same graph of working capital. If you have observed looking at the graph, at one end we have the transaction cost, and when your cash balance goes on increasing, your transaction cost decreases, because when you withdraw more and more, number of transactions will come down. Let me take my previous example only. 10 lakh I have kept in bank. Every time I'll withdraw 1 lakh. So you said I'll have to have 10 transactions. But now let me say 10 lakh I have kept in the bank, and every time I'll withdraw 2 lakh. So how many transactions now? Only 5 transactions. 5 transactions into 50 rupees, which is 250 rupees. My transaction cost reduced. If I can withdraw 5 lakh rupees, so how many transactions? Only 2 transactions. 2 transactions into 50 rupees. That means 100 rupees is the cost. So as you withdraw more and more, the number of transactions will come down, because in one transaction you are withdrawing more amount. So when you have more and more cash balance, your transaction cost is less, but your opportunity cost is more, because more cash balance means more money you will keep idle in your cash box instead of keeping it somewhere and earning interest. So more the cash, less is the transaction cost, and higher is the opportunity cost. If your cash balance decreases, opposite of it happens, transaction cost increases, opportunity cost decreases. At a point both are intersecting, and that point we call it as optimum cash balance point. So this is what I wanted to cover up today till Baumol model, because it is very very important to understand the Baumol model theory first before we go into the problems. Now for your exam they may ask you Baumol model theory maybe for 10 marks. So explain the entire model, in which you will have to explain the first formula, how you find the opportunity cost, then how you found the transaction cost, the total cost, and then how C is derived and the graph. Or they may ask you a problem for 10 marks. There are two ways to do the problem. One is the formula method, which I just now taught you. The other is the tabular or the numerical method, which also I will teach you. So we will do sums on both the methods, and both are easy. Once you start doing practicing, you will get them very easily. So what we will do now is we'll take a break of maybe 5 minutes or 10 minutes. How much time you want a break? You don't want a break? Should I continue? All of you are there?
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am.
ma'am. 5 minutes break,
Ma'am,
ma'am.
ma'am,